and welcome to the next installment in our Building a Rando Bike series. In this episode, we're going to get the cockpit going with rando bars, shifters, derailleurs, and brakes. Hang on. Do you feel that? Whoa! Oh, this is a beautiful metallic graphite paint. Let's get some stuff on it. So here we're marking the steer tube that's going to be cut. Stem, spacers, and everything comes off. And the fork comes out. Now the fork is going into the, I don't know what this is called. Fork, steer, holder for cutting. I think that sounds right. And now if you have any frustrations from your day, go ahead and let them out on the steer. After you clean off the end of the steer tube, let's go ahead and smash in that star nut. Spacers and stem going back on, and note how the steer tube is slightly below the top of the stem. That's important for preload. Handlebars being attached to the stem in a crisscross pattern. All right, let's take a look at some of the components that we're going to be using. We have the Empire 2x11 shifters. They have some little grippiness on the end, which is nice. Here's the rear derailleur. It takes up to a 34 tooth cassette. Front derailleur. And because it's a braze-on style, you'll need to use this clamp-on adapter. Take the screw off of the derailleur, and then we're going to be attaching it to the adapter. And with that adapter, now you can just run that front derailleur just as you would a regular clamp-on front derailleur. Can you do that again? Front derailleur officially on. Undo the shifter clamp and slide your shifters up the drops of the handlebar. Position them in a good place and start tightening down the clamp. Hood placement is important, so note how the transition from the hood to the ramp of the handlebar is nice and smooth. This build is getting the Grotech Equal disc brake treatment. Those are the flat mounts in silver. And they come with cables, housing, mounts, and hardware. This bike is getting 160 millimeter rotors front and rear. So for the rear, you'll need to use this flat plate on the underside of the brake. These screws are a special countersunk variety so that they sit within the mount. The rear is assembled, and the front has a similar plate that you can flip up or down for 140 or 160 rotors. The kit comes with a bunch of screws that you'll need to test fit, you basically want just a little bit standing outside of the flat mount so that it can properly tighten the brake to the frame. You're going to want to leave those bottom screws slightly loose because we're going to be adjusting the caliper's position later. And a similar process for the front. Make sure you leave them a little bit loose because you still need to adjust them in relation to where the rotor sits. Here's the cables and housing that we're going to be using. You want to make sure you get the full length stuff. The down tube cable stop adjusters, these are from Diacomp. Pop off the little rubber protective boot. Pop on the down tube cable stop adjuster and put the little 3mm screw into it. Now we're going to drop the cassette onto the freehub body. This is a regular Shimano 11-speed spline. I think the range is on this cassette we're using is an 1132. Lock ring going on. And the tool to tighten it down. We're going to throw the 160mm 6-bolt rotor onto the hub. Make sure to tighten all the torque screws for their final torquing in a crisscross pattern. All right, so this is the internal routing for the Pass Hunter. And basically what happens is it goes, the housing and the cable goes in here, and there's a tube that's brazed in all the way down the down tube, and that's going to come out towards the bottom bracket shell. Dab of lubricant, a little bit of grease on the housing just so that it slides down a little bit easier. And then you just feed it through. And that's unlike a lot of other internal routing for bikes that have really big down tubes. Those kind of, you put the housing in, it just goes into the abyss. So it's something like this, it comes in, and then it just goes right out. So here comes the housing. Whoop. Easy. Easy routing. Couple zip ties to hold the housing in place. So this is the shifter we're using. It's the Sensa Empire. And there's a bunch of stories online about what is Sensa exactly. And I guess the consensus is it's people that may have worked for SRAM at some point, you know, kind of broke off and did their own thing. In any case, the ergonomics are really good. There's some texture up here. It's nice and comfortable. There's some nice grippiness on the side, so you don't have to worry about your fingers slipping off. And the actuation is kind of like if SRAM and Shimano had a love child, the whole lever moves to shift into your lower gears, but the actuation for shifting down is that of like SRAM double tap. So that's increasing tension going into lower gears, and then this is decreasing tension going into your harder gears. So the whole lever moves, but it's really good. I've had it on a couple bikes, and I've been very happy with it. All right, cable goes in. It lives in its house. For the front, or for the rear, let's mock it up. So, kind of want nice, graceful angles. So let's estimate where it's going to be, how long this housing needs to be, and how much needs to be cut off. So we're going to do it right there. Leave a little extra. So we're going to cut it right. Housing cap. Press it on. Cable. Washing it, make sure it comes out the back. All right, there it is. This housing lives in its house. There we are. Looks nice. Cool. Put the cable through the arm. There we go. Pull it taut. Find your 3mm because you just had it in your hands. Where did I put it? Ha. Tighten down this pinch bolt. Give it a squeeze, see how it feels. Feels good. Whew. I took way too long to set up this view, but it's important because you can see the pads are in the correct position. So here's the outboard pad, and here's the inboard pad. It's nice because we have white floors, so you can actually see through it really easily. If you had dark colored floors, like hardwood floors or something like that, you can open up a picture of just a white background or something like that, put it on the floor so you can see what's behind you. So the Growtac Equal brakes are single-sided calipers. It makes them super light, super simple, and very strong. So you can see the arm moving, pad actuating, and braking happening. That's it. It's simple. Derailleur going on. Now these Sensa Empire 11-speed are actually directly cross-compatible with SRAM 11-speed road. So you bust either your derailleur or your shifters, you can swap them. They're interchangeable. Now this is also nice because it has a carpet fiber cage. Why does it have to be so light? I don't know, but it's cool. In a previous video, I mentioned how you should set up your limit screws before you put the chain on, because look at that. Look how wonky that is. This jockey wheel over here should be in line with that high cog on the cassette, but it's way off. So let's get that in line. 3mm to adjust the high limit screw. Pretty good. All right, let's get the chain on, and then afterwards we'll adjust the low limit screw through the front derailleur, onto the chainring, onto the cassette, through the upper pulley, through the cage, around the lower pulley. Now we have to measure chain length. So there's a lot of ways to do it. I've always done it this way. Just measure basically small, and then just wait until you have just a little bit of actuation on the derailleur, and that's how you know how many links to take out. So right there looks good. So we're going to take out 1, 2. Actually, do you count links by pairs or individuals? I guess it would be, if you're talking individual, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 links. Now we have to put the quick link together, and literally, that's all you had to do. Just step on the crankset. And now we just need to set our high limit or low limit. So let's see how much we have to go. All right. Don't go too far, because then it's going to fall off the cassette, off the backside. Go all the way up there, and then adjust. All right. There we are. So, as you're spinning, There we go. Now you don't have to worry about it falling off on the inside of the cassette where it's almost impossible to get it off. And then while you're here, you can adjust the front derailleur. So as you can see, the front derailleur is pretty far off. Let's see if I can show it to you. Pretty far off. There's a lot of daylight between the cage. Here we go, that's a good view. So the front derailleur is pretty far off. There's a lot of daylight between the cage, the inside of the inboard cage, and the chain. So that needs to come over this way. So this is the low limit screw, and this is the high limit screw. So screw it in. Sometimes you got to give the give the cage a little bit of extra help, but screw it in, and now we are in good shape. Now that we have the brake routed, we're going to do the rear shifter. You can either route it so that it's on the outside of the bar like this, or you can do it down the middle. That goes just kind of right across here. I've found that this way is more comfortable for bars that don't have any flare or very little flare, because you kind of have a platform on where your hand sits. But when you have flare, the housing that's actually kind of poking up here kind of creates a hot spot right here on your hand. So we're going to go down the middle and right here next to the brake housing. Now we're going to see how long the housing needs to be, how much to cut off. What we're looking for all of these housings is graceful curves, because that is less friction than very, very tight bends. So that looks pretty good right there. So we're going to cut right there. Pro tip, that since these are symmetrical, as in the shifters, the shifter housing is going to the same spot on the down tube, that if you measure one and you are satisfied with its length, you just take the other, just whatever piece you have around, and then you just cut the excess off. And now you have two of the same length housing. Housing caps are on. Put the cable through the housing. Yes, I'm using SRAM housing caps because I had them lying around and they are pretty good. Kind of wish they were silver, but you know. Put the cable through the down tube adjuster. This guy out of the way. Nice. Under the bottom bracket shell. These frames have guides. Some of them don't. Some of them have just kind of moldings in the bottom bracket shell. These have a plastic guide. Now we're going to cut the housing for the rear derailleur. And like I said, graceful curves, because if you have it where it's too short, you're going to have quick bends, and cables and housing don't like that. It's actually less friction to use slightly longer housing. Okay, that's in. Let's route the housing through the pinch bolt. Goes like this. There's a little channel, little groove in the derailleur to show exactly where it goes. So now you'll see why I encourage people to set up the rear brake first, because otherwise I'm going to be sticking my hand somewhere to catch the rear wheel when I'm making little adjustments. Need to increase the tension just a little bit. Go through all the gears, see if there's any hang-ups. There's a little something off there. Let's investigate. But I think the issue is that the housing caps kind of settled on the housing, and that basically made the entire length of the housing system shorter. So that made the cable tension lower. So what I need to do now, decrease or pull in the barrel adjuster on the rotor railer a little bit, and then pull some more cable for the pinch bolt. Some people will just keep tightening this. Tightening. No, no, no. This isn't a magic screw. So you need to have it set up properly first, and then you make minor adjustments with the barrel adjuster. I do about 1 turn out, so I can make both adjustments to decrease tension and have room to increase tension. So I'll pull some more cable. See how it feels. Much better. Let's see how it goes now. All right. Looks good to me. And cable end, rear derailleur is done. Now, front derailleur. And just like the rear derailleur, the front derailleur, or the front derailleur housing and cable go through the down tube, adjuster, and up and around in front of the chainstay bridge. You follow their little hints. Sometimes they have little markings. This one has a little marking for which direction the cable goes. And put it there, tighten it down. Let's see how we did. I messed up. So what had happened was, I thought I was all the way at the bottom of the shifter, the bottom click of the shifter, but I wasn't. I was fooled. Now it should work. So I was basically trying to pull cable that wasn't there. All right. So I figured out that I needed to increase some of the cable tension, and I'll show you just in a second. But this basically, the shifters have kind of 4 trim positions. Now we need to we need to hold this part of the cable so it doesn't unwind when you cut it. So there we go. Housing cap. All right, put the guy up a little bit so it doesn't rub on the pant leg. So if you notice here, let's see if I can get you set up for this. As we're going, you can do a little bit, and that's going to basically, if you're kind of not necessarily cross-chaining, but kind of moving towards small, you can be in that gear, and then when you're ready to shift up, go all the way up, fix it up, and then you have a little bit of trim up at the top. So if you're going to be cross-chaining sort of big for a second, then you can move it over just a little bit so it doesn't rub on the front derailleur, on the inner cage of the front derailleur. And then when you're ready to drop all the way down, one more click and it drops you down. And it has the final position all the way inward. So it's almost like lowest gear, cross-chaining a little bit, small, and then you have cross-chaining a little bit with big, small, and then all the way on the outside for your highest gear. All right, so rear brake on, rear derailleur on, front derailleur on, front brake on. Now we just have to take care of all of this spaghetti. Keep these things nice and tight. And we're going to use the finest 3M electrical tape to keep this together. So we're going to position our housing in here exactly where it's going to live. Then we're going to take our fancy electrical tape. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. You can do little sections that you wrap around, or you can do it how I do it, and just kind of do it candy cane style. So I'm just holding it with my left hand, keeping it steady, going all the way around, and then finishing off. Scissors. Left side. Done. And copy and paste on the other side. Now we're going to go for some bar tape to finish off the cockpit. I am going to use this time our foamy tape. It's nice and light. It's really easy to wrap. Comes with the bar ends. Here's what we're going to need. Skizzers and more electrical tape because that was the last of the roll. Hold that. Now what I'm going to do is, and I know that there's a lot of different ways to do this, but this is how I do it. And this is how I've always done it, and it works. So I'm going to put a little piece right here around the clamp area. And that's basically to just cover it when you're wrapping it, to cover the clamp so that you don't see the clamp, because nothing is more embarrassing than taking all the time to wrap your bars nicely and you can see the clamp. All right, so wrap. I don't know, are you interested in watching me wrap bars? I don't know. I'm not that good. There are people that are much, much better than I am. They take a lot more time. But for me, the mantra I kind of go by is perfect is the enemy of done. I could spend eons on this. That's kind of what I have to work on personally, you know? Even doing these videos, sometimes I got to make sure, oh, it has to be perfect. And then sometimes I just end up not doing it because it's like, oh, it's not the right time, or, oh, it's, you know, something is missing or something like that. So that's something that's a me thing, but something that I've learned in my advanced age. All right, hold that. All right, now that we're here, do the finishing touches. Okay, one more loop. And then we're gonna pull it, cut it, unwrap it a little bit. You're gonna be cutting it like this, towards the stem at an angle. Nice tail at the end there. Take your handy dandy electrical tape, put it on the end, and finish it off. Some people use like what's it called? Like silicone tape that kind of sticks to itself. But this has worked for me. And plug your bars because nobody wants to see your core sample. All right, so let's see how we did. All right, looks good. Nice transition from here onto the hoods. Feels good, easy to actuate everything. So the nice thing about these Nuvo Rando bars is because the ramps are actually fairly long, but you have some back sweep to the bars, this is a nice position here when you're not actually on the hoods. And then you can be on the hoods here without having too much of a reach. And copy and paste on the other side. So where are we on this one? We have the drivetrain all done. We have the brakes done. The fenders on. We have the cockpit done. So what's left is some accessories like water bottle cages. We need to put some pedals on it, saddle seat post. And then probably the most important one is going to be the lighting. Now this bike does have a dynamo hub, which means that the hub powers front light. We might even do a rear light. That's going to entail some more wiring that goes from the front to the rear, but we'll play it by ear, see how it goes. We also have a couple more videos that I'm working on. One is a Rando build, a PLA. We're probably going to do a neutrino, and we might even 650B something. So stay tuned for those. Be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, happy riding.